In this video, we're going to review the insert macro instruction from the EnVision ToolBox. Firstly, select an empty cell in the row you'd like to insert the instruction. In the EnVision ToolBox, the insert macro is located under the Parts section with the arrow to the right and the M. Select that now, and a new window should appear asking you to select the macro program you'd like to insert into the template. In this case, I'm going to select a macro for a logo. EnVision will insert the macro with the variables that you have specified inside of the macro as exportable. Each of the gray fields contains the comment from the macro for each variable that you have exported. Insert position X is my first one here, and I'm just going to place this in the middle. Each component inside of the bill of materials can have multiple macros. Each template can have as many macros as the user would like to insert. EnVision will run the template, create the component with any machining specified for that component, and when it comes to the macro instruction, EnVision will open this macro called Weinig, stored in the EnVision macro path location, and EnVision will automatically take the values here from the template and insert them into each of the variables inside of the hops macro. Let's take a look at this now. As we can see here, EnVision has created a new hop file that includes the macro that we've inserted, the Weinig logo. Now, it's important to note that none of the macro variables come through in the newly created EnVision hop file, as you can see here in the bottom left. Let's review the EnVision macro that we placed into here. As we can see, this is the macro that we inserted into our template component. Now, down below on the bottom left, we have our hops variables for this specific program. As we can see here, px, py, size, and depth are the variables that we saw when we inserted the macro into the EnVision template. These are listed as exportable, as denoted here by the check mark in the box under the column exp. The column comment contains the comment that was included in the macro when it was inserted into the template, insertion point X, insertion point Y, etc. Now, there are a couple of things to note. The first thing to note is that the macro must not contain any reference to a different unit of measure. What I mean by this is that you cannot type the unit of measure inside of the text field. If the unit is in inches, then this field must be specified as inch units. You cannot insert millimeters or vice versa inches in a millimeter template. The other thing to note is that the variable name must be explicit. What this means is that I cannot have a variable that is called pyx. This is due to the fact that EnVision uses the string to replace inside of each of the lines of code in the program. So pyx would typically be replaced by the variable py, as those are the first two characters. What happens is the variable inside of the instruction will then be py, which will be replaced with, let's say, 0.5, and the x would remain. This will cause issues when trying to run the program. The next item to note is the name of the variable must be explicit and the character string must match exactly. In this case, we have a capital P and a capital X as the name of our variable. If I simply specify lowercase px inside of the instruction in the hop file, this string will not be replaced. So this would pass through to our new hop file as px plus size times 0.5. In this case, the px would not be replaced, and this will cause an issue when trying to run the hop file. It's important to ensure that the string always matches perfectly with the name of the variable that you've specified as exportable.